How do you assess how the governor has handled this, and also the Texas leaders in Washington, specifically Ted Cruz, and also the representatives here? Have they been on the same page?
I was listening to what Mike Barnicle had to say about governance, and it really struck a chord, because in Texas you have an example of what happens when a state is governed by those who do not believe in government to begin with. The Republican Party, as you know, Mika, has had absolute control of the state Senate, the state House, the governor, the lieutenant governor, every statewide office for the last 20 years. So the decisions to deregulate ERCOT and to ensure that it's not connected to the national grid, to fail to weatherize our power generators, whether it's coal or gas or nuclear or wind or solar, or the transmission lines that carry that energy to us, the inability to ensure that there's excess capacity for emergencies like these to power our homes and businesses and lives. These are all decisions that they made. And now, of course, they're pointing the finger at Congressman Ocasio-Cortez, the Green New Deal, everyone and everything except for themselves, which does not inspire confidence that we're going to get our way out of this or learn from these mistakes. We had a terrible winter storm in 2011 that caused similar rolling blackouts across Texas. You would have thought 10 years later, with many of the same people in power, we would have learned from that mistake, invested in our infrastructure, and kept our fellow Texans safe. But that's not what's happening in the state right now. Many are left to their own devices and relying upon competent local leaders like Lena Hidalgo, the county judge in Harris County, or Clay Jenkins in Dallas. So this is a tough situation, but Texans are tough people. And I think working together, we're going to get our way out of this.
Okay, Beto worked there trying to put Texas in play, and I'm going to tell you, with this, nothing short of a fiasco down there, Texas is now, I think, going to be in play for 2024. It always was, but they're going to really target this and pour in the cash to try to turn Texas blue. But I think there's a deeper issue here, and I think the finger pointing that's going on right now kind of misses the point. That's why I want to have Dr. Peter Navarro. Dr. Navarro, obviously one of the big contributors to the War Room, but also the president's manufacturing czar, right? The assistant to the president, which is the direct report to the president for manufacturing. And I want to go to Darren Beatty and the team at the Revolver.news. At Revolver.news, we're going to get this story up. Huge story about the problem down in Texas, that it's deeper than just this finger pointing on politics. I want to read from this. The mess with the Texas power grid is only the beginning. In the years to come, American infrastructure will fail more and more often as America becomes less capable of maintaining the core elements of a first world country. Why would America become less first world? That's a simple question to answer. Because America is making herself less first world. Now, on the day that this massive amnesty bill drops, I want to bring Dr. Peter Navarro in. So, Dr. Navarro, you're someone that you wrote a book about this, 30, 40 years ago. You have been the president's...
The dimming of America in 1984 with widespread electricity shortages by the year 2000 because of a failure to build adequate central station power capacity, principally coal and nuclear. We've got a similar thing extending now going on, and Beto a little Thursday afternoon quarterbacking. I think his solution might have been to build a bunch more wind turbines that would have frozen. But let me give you a little granularity, and then I'll reflect a little bit on some of the infrastructure problems we had over the 4 years of the Trump administration. So a little cold hard facts here for your radio audience. The slide, we got America's down to about 240 coal plants, 236 gigawatts of capacity. Now, how does that compare to China? China's got 4 times the amount of gigs, and right now they're building new plants equal to what we have existing, and we're slated to basically close another 50. So put that in your Paris Climate Accord and smoke it. The other interesting thing about the facts here is we have a situation where what's going on here. Look, this is it's kind of like the 100-year flood in the sense of the last time they had a low in Houston was in 1985, and that was 20 degrees, and this one's down at 15. And when you drop in temperature, that tends to be a logarithmic effect. And basically, we got a combination of these frozen wind turbines, but equally, or perhaps more importantly, the freezing has affected the ability to run natural gas through the pipes in sufficient quantities to keep the lights on. And then you've got these bursted pipes because of that, because of water shortage. So there's a lot of vectors of this destruction going on right now in Texas. But Steve, the bigger picture here is that in this country, and it's a bipartisan failure, we can't seem to build power plants. We can't seem to build infrastructure. And, like 4 years of the Trump administration, we'd repeatedly go up to the Hill and say, hey, let's do an infrastructure program together. And there would always be disputes about how you would finance it. But the other problem you had with the Democrats is they were always trying to do their Cadillac kind of projects in blue states rather than kind of like, okay, what do we really need? And so, I saw that, watched this kind of like afar. Here's an interesting thing. I was supposed to be the infrastructure guy when we first came in. That was kind of be my remit. And they gave it over to Gary Cohn, and the rest is that kind of history. And it's the tragedy of America here, and you just compare what China is doing to what we're doing, and you can see that we're going to lose the infrastructure race and have kinds of disasters like we're having. And if you're not providing infrastructure to your workers, you can't have manufacturing, you can't have reliability. And the reliability, last stat I'll give you, Steve, is the reliability of our grid has been like a ski slope in Aspen, heading like straight down, diamond style, whereas in other countries, it's like in Japan, like they have like an average of 4 days where they don't have electricity. In New England, it's like it's like in the hundreds. So bottom line is bipartisan failure. I think we need to think about our coal strategy. There's a way to build coal that can address the carbon emissions. But this is a very unstable situation, and a lot of finger pointing is going to go on. But it's Beto and Mitch and Nancy and everybody in between that needs to be held responsible here.
Let me just ask you: they're complaining. They're pointing fingers to the wind turbines, and they froze. Understand? Probably one of the also, as you said, was the natural gas pipelines, but. You talked to China about building these coal plants. You're talking about we actually took some offline. You advocate more. But then again, you've got people saying that this is a 500-year extreme weather, and that weather's because of climate change. How do you square wanting to build, having China just unleashed building these coal-fired plants, which, as you know, they're not clean and not net carbon, or even the ones that are scrubbed or the cleanest you've got in the United States. They're still carbon positive. So how do you square that with people who are saying, hey, the extreme weather is coming from climate change?
When's the last time you heard Beto O'Rourke or AOC or Biden or any of the Democrats point out the hypocrisy of the Chinese? I mean, no matter what we do in this country, Steve, if China builds coal, it's not that they're building coal plants so fast, it's they're building them without any kind of environmental controls, right? That's the problem. And so when they do that, in the short run, what they do is they get cheaper electricity and more competitive advantage against factories here in the United States. And the Democrats just don't seem to get that. And so, a rational energy strategy here is one of strategic energy dominance, where we do the fracking, we have the gas that fires our electricity generation, but we got to figure out. We talked about this yesterday. It's like I've never thought that you could solve this carbon problem the way we've gone about it. It's got to be like a carbon capture, where you can use natural gas and gasoline and all this stuff.
This is about
this is time. Maybe we have a national dialogue about this. But Beto doesn't help anything by pointing fingers at Republicans. This is a bipartisan American failure that we need to deal with. That's been decades in the making.
This is what Trump reversed when he defeated Hillary Clinton in 2016. She was the personification of American decline. And the managed decline, remember, it's managed decline by our elites. You look at this amnesty bill, you look at what the infrastructure problem is, go to Revolver. This is just not a one. Look, what's happening down in Texas has got to be sorted. Somebody's got to get on top of it, particularly the water situation. They're having like the domino effect. But there's a deeper problem here. And this is that, the Chinese are laughing at us, right? They got all this new infrastructure, new airports, rapid, bullet trains, all of that. And we're sitting here. Maybe one of the solutions I want to play. Let's go to Ohio. I want to get Jane Timkins. Can we get Denver to put the Jane Timken? Jane Timken, the chairman of the GOP in Ohio, absolutely essential to President Trump's victory, just announced today for the United States Senate. We want to play her for our radio and podcast audience. We're going to play her ad right now. Do we have that up and ready to roll? Denver. Okay.
Ohio is the greatest state in America. Grit and determination are in our DNA. Our communities are strong. Our workers are tough. Ohioans never, ever give up. I'm Jane Timken. I'm a mom and a proud Ohioan. I was born in Cincinnati and raised my family here in Canton. When I look at Washington today, I see threats to our freedoms that will jeopardize the futures of my kids and yours. Amnesty for 12 million illegal immigrants, the largest tax increase in American history. Liberal attacks on our energy jobs. We can't let America become a socialist country. I'm running for the United States Senate to stand up for you, just like next to President Trump, and supported his America First agenda that created jobs and brought manufacturing back to our shores. As Ohio Republican Party chairman, I cleaned house of the Kasich establishment. We tried to elect Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. I unified the party and delivered a second decisive Ohio win for President Trump. As your senator, I will advance the Trump agenda without fear or hesitation, fighting for American manufacturing and Ohio workers, defending the unborn in our Second Amendment, standing up for law enforcement and stronger borders. Like every tough Ohioan, I know how to fight and I know how to win. I'm Jane Timken, and I'm ready to show Washington what Ohio is made of.
Okay.
See, that's not rhetoric, Steve. That's not rhetoric. That is the God-honest truth from one of the toughest people I know. Jane Timken was a force of nature in Ohio for Donald J. Trump. Remember how strong that we took that state. That thing was rock solid.
Rock solid.
She's the wife of Tim Timken, who comes from a steel-making family that goes on for decades there. And I can't think of a better candidate to go forward in America for the U.S. Senate than that woman there. That's as good as it's ever going to get.
The War Room doesn't tell you how to vote, but we want you to go to her site. That's pure MAGA right there. Dr. Navarro, thank you very much for the infrastructure talk. A lot more to talk about that tomorrow. Big problem. That's why you look at the Jane Timken steel. Tough as boot leather. We're going to return with Boris Epshteyn in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
On the day that he puts forward a radical, and it is a radical, we had Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies on today. We've been ahead of the story for weeks. We told you this day was coming. They put a radical amnesty plan on the table today. I think it's 600 or 700 pages. The summary's about 75 pages. We're going to get it up in the live chat. Make sure you can read it. You have to at least go through the summary. 3 basic areas. The number one area is like they said, 11 million to 15 million, maybe 20 million. in a rapid amnesty, everywhere from 4 years, I think, to 8 years, amnesty for illegal aliens, 11 million to, I don't know, up to 20 million. Then you've got the no enforcement. In fact, I think they start to gut the EOs have already undone everything Trump tried to do in the first 4 years, except for a couple of things, and stopping the wall. And they really put the pressure on this bill on ICE. They want to. This is the kind of the defund the police mentality. This is basically take down the internal enforcement of our immigration policies, and it's also, I think, gut even E-Verify, which is where I've said from day one I wanted to increase raids on employers. I've said for a long time it's not the folks coming up looking for a job. They're rational human beings. You got to disincentivize them from coming across. And the problem is the employers. They're the ones benefiting from this and putting all the other problems on the school system, on the health system, all of that. Well, they benefit from the cheap wages. And this system, I think, almost guts E-Verify. So it guts unemployment. Then it's got the legal immigration. It is huge increases to that. And that's just putting pressure on the high-tech jobs, the fourth industrial revolution jobs. Which the millennials. Remember, this is why the millennials are Russian serfs. Not going to own anything. Late family formation, no capital formation, in the gig economy on that wheel, all the time. Get a little credit, get some student debt, get some credit card debt. You're just on the wheel. That's what they want. And now you look at this. Now you look at the infrastructure in this country. Right? And Revolver, Darren Bay and this guy, it's a tough article. It's the lead over at Revolver. Go read it. We'll have it up. About, hey, what are we talking about here? We a first world country. What's happening? The infrastructure is collapsing. People can't manage things. This is the managed decline of the United States. This is what Donald Trump stopped with Hillary Clinton. And now you've seen it again in all its glory. I want to bring in Boris Epshteyn. Boris, and Beto, we had Beto for the open because I wanted the audience to hear, because I know they don't watch MSNBC, the finger pointing starting, and I want to stay out of the finger pointing, right? The short term. Right. It's a deeper issue. But what is Biden on top of this? I mean, if President Trump, at least we've been watching it pretty closely, there doesn't seem to be any kind of stepping into decisions here. They want to federalize the vaccination program, but here you have an issue that you would think that be totally, I mean, this is supposedly, according to the climate change guys, a 500-year storm, created by climate change. You would think they would be engaged 24/7 with what's happening in Texas and even in the Pacific Northwest. There they've got, hundreds of thousands of people without power. Does it seem like the Biden administration is on top of it? Because I'm going to say something from people I know around there. I don't feel the energy. I mean, the opening days of the Trump administration, bang, 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 we were hitting, executive order. But they've done 57 executive orders. The Justice Department did it for him during the transition. I mean, Trump was constantly on TV, constantly out there having meetings in the Roosevelt Room, 2 and 3 meetings a day with different groups. Is Biden stepped into these decisions? Is he stepping in and owning this presidency?
Absolutely not, Steve. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me. Amazing to be with the MAGA Brain Trust. That is the War Room's listeners and viewers. No, Joe Biden, they did declare a national state of emergency. You wouldn't know it in the news, actually. It hasn't been covered at all. They declared a state of emergency from the national level for the state of Texas. But Biden is absolutely not taking control of this. He did that pathetic town hall, and really you haven't seen him otherwise, not just this week, but any weeks. Sometimes he'll walk out there to the to the helicopter, or when he's about to take off, when he went for Delaware, he just says, bye, see everybody. It's obvious that Joe Biden's badly deteriorated, but this is no longer a campaign issue. This is now a governance issue. I don't want
to nitpick him. So let's not nitpick him. And so they did declare the national state of emergency, but do you see the energy? Ron claimed. Do you feel the energy? I know he's prime minister over there, right? Do you feel the energy? Do you feel like they're grabbing on to issues and actually trying to drive them forward? I mean, even their amnesty bill, they kind of went to Politico. Politico said Democrats have a huge problem with this because of the Rio Grande Valley, of how Trump's policies on security and economics are winning over working class Hispanics. But even when they put this bill forward, you had all kind of talk in the New York Times and others saying, hey, well, they know they can't get it through, so they're going to try to break it into 4 bills and get past what it is. Is that what administrations do, particularly out of the blocks, when you're supposed to be trying to drive the narrative?
It's a pathetic start. It's a pathetic start. And they had some cover. Politico did a story, I think it was on Sunday. This is the real beginning of the Biden administration, because apparently the Trump administration extended until the end of the sham impeachment. So now is the beginning. But now we're another, 5 days into it. And still, there's no energy. I mean, remember those early days, Steve? You're right. The meetings in the Roosevelt Room. I was there. The meetings in the state dining room, when you had all the media folks in, and you had the business people in. You had all those round tables. You had the councils. Remember, Elon Musk was in the West Wing. You had Jamie Dimon in the West Wing. You had serious people who were coming through the West Wing and coming through the White House, meeting with President Trump, engaging on issues, and the President Trump moving the ball forward on the travel ban, moving the ball forward on immigration, moving the ball forward on the economy, right away looking at tax cuts, right, looking at deregulation. Looking backward, I think we agree we probably should have done infrastructure before focusing on healthcare. But that's 2020. But at least it was means vision is 2020, looking backward. But at least it was action. What I'm hearing here, Steve, from some good sources is that there are not a lot of people in the White House. The complex is not that full because a lot of folks are working from home. Specifically today, Jen Psaki had her briefing by audio only, which suggests she's probably not at the office. Maybe she's sipping a latte, at home while people in Texas have no water and no power. So this administration is lackadaisical and it is lazy. The Biden administration is lackadaisical and it is lazy. Just like the Obama administration largely was lackadaisical and lazy. That's why they didn't push back on China. President Trump said this a lot, that the Chinese were almost sort of pleasantly surprised that the Trump team started fighting and pushing back because the Obama team did so little, almost nothing. That's why the Obama team effectively gave all the leverage to Iran. Right. The Obama team came into the negotiations with Iran and Europe holding all the cards, all the leverage.
Gave it away.
They gave it all away. Yep. Again, lazy.
Same in China.
And that's what you're seeing here.
Same in China. We hold the cards. Remember, I think it was Jake Sullivan had told somebody, I think Fareed Zakar, that, hey, Bannon and these guys are right. We have the cards on China. We can cut them off capital markets, cut them off technology, cut them off everything. We have the cards. This whole Thucydides trap, where we're the declining power, they're the rising power. It feels like sometimes managed decline. That's what Trump stopped, but it feels like we're back to that. I want to go how this shows up in the numbers. This is just not Boris and Steve having a cup of coffee talking about it. The numbers are coming out. They had the thing today from Breaking News 911 that showed the approval ratings. I think Obama was 62%. President Trump was somewhere in the 50s. Biden's at 50%. And then Quinnipiac, I think, put up a poll.
Showed party line.
Party line. But then Quinnipiac had it at 49%. What the mainstream media and the tech oligarchs don't understand, by trying to suppress about the big steal, right? And then coming out and mocking everybody with the cover story in Time magazine about the secret history of the big steal. They don't understand that is now solidified, right? There's 40% of the American people thinks this guy's illegitimate. But still, when you're below 50% in the honeymoon period, the first 30 days out of the box, you're not going to be put in a big amnesty bill that radically changes the country. You don't have any political capital. Zero political capital. And that number is not going to...
Harris call world leaders?
That's my point. So to walk me through, you're a political guy. Walk us through right now. We got a couple of minutes. What's the meaning of these numbers?
Here's what I'm saying. If you look at the two leaders in America today, right, the last two presidents, you've got President Trump, who's riding high, acquitted in the Senate, huge crowd greeting him in West Palm Beach on President's Day. Got Steve Scalise just went down to see him in Mar-a-Lago after McCarthy did so. Nikki Haley asked to see him. President Trump said,
Womp,
nope, too
womp,
much, bridge
womp,
too far, Nikki.
Womp,
womp, and then now it's in the public. Hey, sorry.
We leaked that.
You F with the bull, you get the horns. Sorry, Nikki. You hate it when that happens. Bless her heart, as they say in the South. So what you see is President Trump coming from strength, and you see President Biden coming from weakness. He has a town hall. He says, I got to turn to Jill, ask where I am, saying the quiet part out loud. Total disaster on vaccines, disaster on China. And he's having Kamala Harris call world leaders. Finally, he got around to calling Benjamin Netanyahu, and I'm sure Bibi had to sort of walk him through that phone call. So that juxtaposition of the weakness from Biden and the strength of President Trump is what's driving these numbers. And you better believe it's going to drive all the way through 2022. The Republicans only need to pick up 5-6 seats.
But I'm
to
saying
be
for the
back in
short
majority
term, let's get too far. Just watch.
And then on to
These numbers are going to drop. Boris, how do people get to your? I know you got to get out of here at 5:30. Give us your social media. Everybody wants to know how to follow you.
Thanks, Stephen. Real quick, the President Trump among Republicans, 52% to be the nominee in 24. Donald Trump Jr. at 6. So between the two Trumps, it's at 60. And that's after that PR onslaught from the Democrats. That's only going up. I bet you President Trump's in the 60s in the summer. I'm at Boris CP on Twitter. Boris_Epshteyn, Boris_EPSHTEYN on Instagram. God bless. Stay strong. See you tomorrow.
Okay, Boris, thank you very much. That number, the Quinnipiac number, we told you this thing's in the 40. Richard Barrett says it's about 47, 48. It's going to get down to the mid to low 40s, and then it's over. The administration is just going to be crippled. And it's going to be the frontline states, attorney generals, plus issues like the second front that's opening in California. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. We have Dr. Shiva from MIT. We're going to talk about voting machines and how to clear up this mess today so no more stealing can go on in the future. Next, War and Pandemic.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we're not going to get sorted for the future until we get sorted of what's happening today. Remember, we're totally, completely focused on November 3rd on how that word gets out. And remember, Biden's numbers are only going to drop as more and more Americans come to the conclusion that something was not right on November 3rd. Okay? And we have overwhelming evidence, and we do believe that the president's team missed a huge opportunity in this trial in the Senate. There may be other opportunities. If they have some sort of 9/11 commission, to me, it ought to be demanded that Peter Navarro, Matt Brainerd, and others, Phil Klein, that can walk through the overwhelming evidence. And this does not include voting machines, right? As people know from day one, I've not been the voting machine guy because simply I said, hey, that required a more sophisticated investigation, and it would take a long time. And then to see, because I can't come to judgment. I did with Mike Lindell, who's a very smart guy and has a lot of technology tied to his company and the ability to market the pillows, and they're very analytically driven. He's come to a different conclusion. That's why I did an expanded version of his film, Absolute Proof, which everybody should see. But I made the questions there and breaking it up into sections like a game film to push back on some of the assertions, say, show more evidence. Mike has shown, is starting to show that evidence. Another, I think, 28-minute film is up. He was with us yesterday morning. It's up now. And the film is now, I think, on Mike or LindellTV.com. Or you can go to MikeLindell.com and start to see the other. He's got another 2-hour version up. He's trying to push it out because, YouTube and others try to take him down. One of the key characters in this, or one of the key participants, subject matter experts in the film, is Dr. Shiva from MIT. I've known Dr. Shiva for a number of years when he first ran for the Senate. And what I can tell you, he's one of the smartest guys in the country. I think he's got 4 degrees from MIT. I've always teased him. I finally met the guy with 2 brains. This is one of the smartest guys around. And Dr. Shiva's got his own story. He's in court right now with a lawsuit that continues to press forward. So this is when people come back and say, we got to take you down because you can't say the F word, the fraud word. I said, hey, they're recalling the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. They're trying to send him to jail. The Senate's trying to get a warrant out for him to arrest him. In Georgia, there's lawsuits. Dr. Shiva's got lawsuits up in Massachusetts. There are things going on in Michigan. There's guys looking at the machines. They're looking at recounts. They're doing everything. And this is either at state legislatures or in courts, either state or federal courts. This is not a bunch of guys sitting at a bar yelling at a TV. So I want to bring Dr. Shiva on. And here's one of the reasons I wanted to do with Dr. Shiva today. Dr. Shiva is probably one of the most sophisticated technologists I've ever met, right? And, he's not a guy that's gone off the grid up to northern Idaho and is, working a subsistence farm up there. He's got 4 degrees, I think, from MIT. He's a Massachusetts resident, which is the second heart. You've got Silicon Valley. You've got 128 in Boston around MIT and Harvard. Austin, Texas is the 3 great tech centers of the United States. So, Dr. Shiva, I just have a question, and I'm not singling out Dominion, and I'm not singling out ESS, or I'm not singling out Smartmatic. I just have a basic, simple question. Given the amount of voting that comes through, et cetera, why, and I wanted to ask you because you're a technology guy, why do we even need voting machines? Why can't we just go back to a time, and it may take a day longer, why can't we go back to a time when we used to count all these votes by hand? Because then we can remove all the finger pointing and questioning, and is there a server on the moon, or is it a gun battle in Frankfurt, or are the Chinese doing this? Do we absolutely, from your point of view as a technologist, do we need voting machines?
Well, Steve, it depends on who we mean by we. If you're the elites, they need voting machines because you want to centralize voting. The founders of this country were all about decentralization of power. What voting machines allow to do, Steve, is they allow centralization of power. On September of 2020, Mark Zuckerberg gave $50 million to an organization called Center for Election Innovation Research, started by a woman called Amy Cohen, who is one of the defendants in our lawsuit. She's executive director of NASA, and that was to centralize vote tabulation. So if you want to control elections, if you want them to be selections, which is what I believe we have in this country, and there's more than enough evidence and not elections, you do want to make everything electronic, and you want to centralize vote tabulation. There's no reason. I mean, I think you and I were sharing earlier in my lawsuit, I told the judge that I find it as an MIT guy to be an ironic situation where I have to say that I'm becoming a Luddite, which means you believe in using non-technical methods. We should go back to hand-counted paper ballots at the precincts, and they should be reported at the precincts. That's what needs to happen, Steve. And Election Day should be a national holiday, maybe bigger than Christmas in some ways, where high school students, everyone gets involved, and we all go back to the local model of counting the votes by hand and reporting them by hand, Steve. It's the only way out of this. You cannot trust these electronic voting methods at all, particularly when you find out that the secretaries of state and the National Association of State Election Directors are actually certifying voting machines with a feature in that, which has been around since 2002, called a weighted race feature, where you can literally multiply votes. And I didn't believe this, Steve, until I actually looked at the manual, started studying it. And in my own election in Massachusetts, we were able to, in our lawsuit, which has been unrebutted, the mathematical analysis, and there's a lot of smart people here at MIT, where we've shown that they multiplied our votes by approximately 2/3, and the other guys by 1.2.
Well, hold it, hang over a second. I want to put a pin in. I'm coming to that in a second. You said decentralization and go back to the precinct level, make it a national holiday, have high school kids as civics, whatever. Count it and keep it at the precinct level. Report up, but keep your hands on those paper ballots. Isn't the shift in technology today, whether it's blockchain or cryptocurrency, isn't everything in technology today driving to decentralization, where you're actually giving more authority and more responsibility and more decision making to people down at lower levels? Isn't that what technology is about right now? A massive blockchain being key, a massive process of decentralization?
Well, here's the thing, Steve. I'm going to answer that the following way. In 1787, there was an organization created by the founders called the United States Postal System. When that innovation was created, it was for decentralization of communications. It was supposed to be the backbone of the First Amendment. It's going to sound really weird when people say, what's he talking about, the Postal Service? There was a lot of heated discussion that the founders had that in order for the First Amendment to exist, you needed to have a vehicle for each individual to communicate with another at a lower cost, at a very low cost, which was secure and protected and private, because the Crown wasn't allowing to do that. Well, the Postal Service was the public commons. It was intended to not only for postal mail, it was supposed to offer infrastructure for all sorts of transactions. So yes, you have software technologies like blockchain, but who is controlling the infrastructure of all this, Steve? We have handed over, outsourced our infrastructure, particularly in the area of communications, at least to 3 major companies in the software world: Google, Facebook, and Twitter, and in the hardware world to probably 3 or 4 AT&T, Vodafone, and Verizon, who control the pipes. So all of this, what you're saying, yes, the software could be true, and there's other, blockchain is not complete, but there was supposed to be a modus operandi. Some things were supposed to be the public comments. The Postal Service, in my view, forgot their innovative history, has completely done, not kept up with the times. Imagine if the Postal Service, Steve, offered an infrastructure. That infrastructure was equivalent to Facebook, Twitter, and the ability for us to do localized voting. That's what that infrastructure was supposed to be for. And they've lost their way. In 1997, I met with the Postal Service when I saw email volume overtake, postal volume, and I said, you guys need to offer the same public infrastructure because the big tech guys are the foundation of the First Amendment. They thought it was a ridiculous idea. 2011, they're going out of business, and you see what the conditions have become. We are essentially headed to, in many ways, towards fascism because the state and the government dictate to these private companies how to control communications. It's a very fundamental issue.
Okay. I want to go to now.
I hope I'm...
No, it's fantastic, but I want to go now to your court case. I want people to talk about, because you're relentless. I say, if you got Dr. Shiva involved, he's not going to back off. You're in a couple of lawsuits. It's going through federal court. They haven't been thrown out yet. You've got all kind of mathematical analysis in there to support your case. But tell us about this thing that you found out about, weighted race. Why are they even weighting things and multiplying different people by different mathematical sets? Why aren't they just counting the votes?
Well, Steve, let me talk about the lawsuit, and I'll answer that question. There's two lawsuits we have, Steve. One is court case 1189, which is the fundamental issue with the violation of the First Amendment, and the other is on one person, one vote. The first lawsuit I filed was in late September when I found out that these voting machines, by the way, in Massachusetts, everyone's background, we ran an amazing campaign, 3,000 volunteers, 10,000 lawn signs, 20,000 bumper stickers. The Republican GOP swamped through a guy who was nowhere to be found. On election night, we win, Steve, in Franklin County, which was predominantly all hand-counted votes. In every other county, Steve, 60-40, 60-40, 60-40, 60-40, 60-40.
I see a pattern.
Every one of my friends said, they said, Shiva, you're going to win this race. It's a landslide. And I didn't believe, Steve, even though, I believe in all the swamp and I can expose that election fraud really took place in this country. Yeah, India, Africa, it goes on, but not in America. But that night, Steve, it was so clear to me on September 1st as I saw the results coming in. By September 9th, I put my heart and soul into it. I found out that at the electronic voting machines, when you take a ballot and you scan it, Steve, it takes an image. It's called a digital ballot image. That image is what is actually tabulated. The ballot image is the image when you go to the electronic digital form. So I was tweeting out like crazy, Steve. Election fraud took place in Massachusetts. The Secretary of State deleted over 1 million ballots-ballot images. The Secretary of State of Massachusetts communicated with me saying, we don't need to save ballot images in Massachusetts. We don't generate them. By Massachusetts law, we're prohibited from creating them. I write back an email saying, please show me the statute. They write back an email saying, we save the paper, but we don't store ballot images. I said, you violated federal law according to USC 52 USC 20701. Any data generated in connection with the federal election must be saved. Anyway, when I did that on September 25th, 2016, and I put those 4 emails up on Twitter, bam, I'm taken off, Steve. And who took me off? Not Twitter. Out of the 19,001 tweets I'd done until that day, never had I been banned by Twitter. But when that happened, Steve, the government, we found out in testimony, contacted Twitter. The government, the Secretary of State said, get this guy off. In testimony, in 4-hour testimony, by the way, Steve, I represented myself in that case in a hearing. The judge reprimanded them and he gave me the terms of my TRO order. It was found out that the Secretary of State of Massachusetts has a hotline. They're a trusted Twitter partner. Up until then, the Attorney General was saying, oh, anyone could have turned off Shiva. Total BS. They contacted Twitter. So big tech is a ruse. Government has never gone after big tech because they need them. They turn Twitter on. And gets even more interesting, Steve. In testimony, the judge says, maybe I'm old school. I believe in the First Amendment. But why don't you simply go on Twitter if you disagree with Dr. Shiva? Turned out they also contacted the National Association of State Election Directors, funded by the Rockefellers, funded by Quadrivium. And those guys also contacted Twitter. Why? Because I was exposing this fundamental issue that they delete ballot images, Steve. The ballot images are the ballots. Why? Now it gets to the second lawsuit. The ballot images are the fingerprints, the path that directly relate to the computer algorithms. Because when you throw away the ballot images...
Dr. Shiva, hang on. We're going to come right back. I want to finish this up. Dr. Shiva will join us after the break. And Melissa Huray from Lindell Recovery Network.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, now with over 36 million downloads on the podcast, we're up live on John Frederick's Radio Network, on Real America's Voice, the streaming service of the Trump Revolution, Dish Channel 219, Comcast 113, also on Rumble, Gab, Telegram, Roku, Pluto, everywhere. We try to meet you where you are. We're ubiquitous and, of course, always free. I want to get back to Dr. Shiva. Look, in the live chat and on hashtag War Room Pandemic, whether you're in Telegram or at Real America's Voice or warroom.org, it's on fire for Dr. Shiva. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring Dr. Shiva back tomorrow. Subject to his schedule, we'll figure out in the morning show or the afternoon show, and we'll get the word out there because this audience is on tenterhooks. But I will say something, and I've not been a machine guy. I've been focused on the low-hanging fruit of how it was principally stolen by illegal alien voting, underage voting, whether it's Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin. The IC is up there and definitely confined. However, I have said that I think the solution for the machines is going to come from the lawyer DePerno in Antrim County and Dr. Shiva, the Senate candidate, really in a primary in Massachusetts. There, I think you're going to find it. And Shiva's in federal court. The lawsuit continues to go on. I want to leave it hanging, but here's what we need to do tonight, Dr. Shiva, before you go. How do people go to your site? Tell people how they follow you on Twitter, how they follow you on the different social media, but particularly how they get to your site and find out more information about this, because this audience is united in the question of why do we actually need machines and what do we need to do to get rid of them? Sir.
Yes, so people should go to VA Victory America Shiva, SHIVA.com. And Steve, what we're doing is we're building our own underground platform for people to communicate, get educated. And you'll find on that site, vashiva.com, and you can go to /join, and you can join this movement of people coming together to want to get educated. But more importantly, one of the things that we're doing is to offer people an opportunity to communicate, which is an environment independent of big tech. So that's actually taking place. And when you go to that site, you can get access to the lawsuits. We're calling one of them the one person, one vote lawsuit, Steve, which we'll talk about more tomorrow, and the First Amendment lawsuit. But these are two very fundamental lawsuits that what's wild about this, Steve, is I'm representing myself in court, okay? We couldn't find any of the swamp lawyers to do it, so I had to do it myself.
Dr. Shiva, I wouldn't expect anything less. Dr. Shiva, with 4 degrees from MIT. Sir, it's a great honor to have you on. We're looking forward to you tomorrow. One more time, give the site so people can go to it. I want to make sure everybody gets there.
So, remember, Steve, I was thrown off Twitter again when I brought up those 4 ballot images on February 1st. So we went back into the judge because we're telling the judge that they violated his order. But go to my direct site, VA Victory America Shiva, SHIVA.com. And join, start getting educated, or be enslaved. That's our slogan, Steve. We got to get people educated and how these systems are interconnected.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Shiva, see you tomorrow. Okay, now go. And if the guys can give me text me about precinct. We got to get to people. Got to get to the Dan Schultz site. I need everybody in this audience to hit the Dan Schultz site and to at least get the information to be a precinct committeeman. Most important thing in your life, to empower yourself. Melissa, Huray, the Lindell Recovery Network, it's just all over me every day of how the left continues to attack this relentlessly. Give us, once again, what you guys are about, how it's not related to anything for-profit, and why are people coming after you so hard?
Steve, first I want to say happy spiritual birthday to my boss, Mike Lindell. Today, 4 years ago, was actually the day he did his first to Jesus through the Operation Restored Warrior program. So happy spiritual birthday, Mike. And you know, Steve, addiction, relating to your point, bringing this in, addiction treatment has grown into a $35 billion industry.
Wow.
Back in the 80s, about 4,000 people going to treatment every year. And now 30 plus years later, we're admitting about 14,000 or more per year, and overdose rates have tripled. So So in spite of the latest and greatest evidence-based practices and innovation, so to speak, we aren't really helping people any more than we were in the 1980s. And the National Institute on Drug Abuse, they don't have one randomized clinical trial showing that 12-step treatment is highly effective, yet 75% or more of treatment programs in the U.S. use it as the primary foundation of their programs. You know, I have nothing against AA. I was mandated to AA in the late 90s. There's nothing wrong with it. It helps about 5 to 10% of people who go through it, but it was never intended to be a treatment. It's a support group. It's a free fellowship. Its founders never meant for it to be mandated or enforced on anybody. So in spite of this dismal research that only about 5 to 10% are going to, you know, get set free through AA, treatment centers continue to use it, which really just begs the question of what are they paying for when they go to these high-end rehabs. So you look at the website, you're going to see a lot of offerings. You're going to see, you know, meditation groups and equine therapy and all sorts of things maybe unrelated to what you're going there for to try to get free from addiction. But also with that, you're going to get a lot of AA meetings that you could do for free. I mean, here in Minnesota, I'd love to go to a nice warm place and go on a vacation, but a lot of people, they don't want to pay $30,000 to $50,000 or more to go to treatment. But that's really what's being promoted a lot. You know, watch TV at night, you'll see all these commercials of different rehabs, and it just begs the question of what are we paying for? And does this help with outcomes? We're really not getting any improved outcomes, like I said. And a lot of times people think more treatment is going to lead to a better outcome. Our knee-jerk reaction when someone relapses is send them back to treatment. I've met people who've been through 10, 20 treatments and they are not getting set free. That's what we want to do with the Lindell Recovery Network, is offer people an alternative. Even if you look at people's success rates, people want to tout these astronomical success rates at these high-end rehabs. 80% are clean a year out. The way they do these follow-ups is just to call people on the phone and try to, you know, reach them and ask them if they're still sober. That's their idea of doing a follow-up. It's really subjective, and it's dependent upon reaching the person and them being truthful. And it's not like they're going to their house and having them drop a UA or something like that. So the research we have, it's like the wild, wild west. It's highly unregulated, the treatment industry.
So you just wrote a big op-ed or analysis for us. We've got it up on the site. We're going to put it into the live chat and on #WarOnPandemic. How do people get right now, because we've got about 45 seconds, how do people get to the Lindell Recovery Network to check it out for themselves? Where do they have to go?
Yeah, come to LindellRecoveryNetwork.org. You get on there, watch the video at the bottom of the landing page. It will give you your access code, and you can get in, unlock the site. We've got the Operation Restored Warrior course up in full, along with the companion PDF. We've got biblical counseling manuals there, too. You can access all of this for free. You can watch full-length testimonials of people who've been set free. So go there, email me at support@LindellRecoveryNetwork.org.
And 4 years ago today, it was Mike Lindell gave us his life over to Christ. Very, very important day for Mike Lindell, the fighter, the patriot. Miss Huray, thank you very much. Lindell Recovery Network. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 to talk about amnesty, Texas, all of it. See you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.